happening, folks, gentlemen? How are y'all today? A rainy morning.
Yeah, it's supposed to get colder too as the day goes. It looks like so. The rain may turn into something else.
Yeah, don't say that.
I don't believe that for 1 minute. Was there still milk at the grocery store? Oh man, I wish it would snow. I like snow, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
It'd be a good day for it because tomorrow the kids are out of school.
Oh, Martin Luther the King.
Martin
I
Luther King
cannot
Day.
say his name any other way since Coming to America.
Coming to America. It's like my favorite.
I love that.
movie. I think it's the best comedy ever.
Eddie Murphy is awesome, son.
He is. He plays the Jewish guy, the white Jewish guy.
He plays all those guys. You know what I mean? He plays all those guys.
That's a great one.
You ain't never met Martin Luther the King.
We punched him in his chest, didn't he?
Yes.
Punched him in the chest.
Come around the corner and guess who I saw? Martin Luther the King. Man, you ain't
never
never
seen no Martin Luther King.
Oh man, love Eddie Murphy, a product of the '80s, son. I can't say his name any other way. That holiday's coming up, which, by the way, brought up. Someone sent me a clip, like a reel, and asked me, was there any truth to it? Which I still don't really know, but it was. The whole thing was Martin Luther the King was actually a Marxist.
I don't agree. Look, this is what I think. This is the League of Logic, right? And I want to caution everybody on a logical fallacy that I think plagues our society.
For sure.
And it's called false dichotomy. Sometimes it's called false dilemma. Some people call it false binary. It's when only two options are presented, when there's actually many different options, but it's when only two options are presented as the only possibilities, and it forces someone to choose between the two extremes. It's like the phrase, you are either with me or against me, or with us or against us. When actually that's not true. You may not be for either one of them. You might be for truth.
Unless Jesus said it, then that's the only option.
Yeah, we're a little bit different there. You either for Jesus or you're not. There is a dichotomy there. It's not false. There is a binary
That's
there,
a real one.
And it's just like man and woman. There is a binary there. There's no in between. But you can be for truth and not be for anybody. Or if you're not a conservative, that's the one today. If you're not a conservative, then you must be a liberal. And that's not always the case either. Things like that are much more nuanced. And in the case of Martin Luther King, it seems to be that if he wasn't a capitalist, then he must have been a communist, which means he's a Marxist.
That's what the government pushed on him at that time.
Absolutely. They had him labeled as a communist, and they were investigating him, but they can never really prove it or anything like that. So I don't. It's not that simple to say if he wasn't a capitalist and he was a communist, and therefore a Marxist. It's not that simple, and I just don't think that's true.
So it's a sensitive subject, obviously, in our society today, and I don't know why this whole idea of racism is such a big deal, because that aggravates me more than anything. Let's just be honest. I mean, we're all humans, right. And so and I think it is another ploy to try to divide. However, when we get questions like this, you know me, I think it's a responsibility that if that is a viewpoint, I want to know why people have it. I think that's important for any topic that you're trying to discuss. Don't just settle in on the first thing that you hear, but try to see. And we'll see anything that is faulty or flawed or not based on truth. There will be flaws in it that will reveal themselves, right?
Right.
So I looked into, I tried to find people who affirmed that belief. And there were some predominant names. Vody Bachman he was very vocal that Martin Luther the King was a Marxist. And I'll let you just go listen to some of the things that he had to say about it yourself. I'm just going to give you the references. You can figure it out all you want to. And there's another guy. His name is Chad O. Jackson. He's like a historian and a filmmaker. He helped with documentaries like Uncle Tom 2, and all those different, racially, political activist type films and stuff. And just to give you some of the basic outlines for why they believe it. Obviously, there was a class struggle going on during that time, between African Americans or Black people and white people, and So they said that this is just what they said. King's rhetoric moved decisively from the classic civil rights constitutionalism where he started. He moved towards an economic class warfare. And so he framed American injustice not primarily as a legal inequality, but as a systemic economic exploitation. And this is where he divided the two classes, where you have the haves and the have-nots. So instead of, at the beginning when he started solid, he ended up with, we have a class of haves and we have a class of have-nots. This is their basis. He increasingly divided society into an oppressor and an oppressed class, which is a Marxist dialect. You know what I mean? So he had his Poor People's Campaign was not merely charitable. It was like redistributive, I think it's how they say, redistributive political project aimed at restructuring wealth through the federal power. They wanted to redistribution of wealth through the federal government.
Yes.
So these ideas that they're pulling from some of the things he said, this is what leads them to that extreme portion of Marxism.
Right.
I mean, it is socialist idea. I don't know if it goes all the way into Marxism or not, but they noted he had maintained some relationships with individuals and organizations that were directly linked to Marxism. Some of his advisors and associates were connected to the Communist Party, the USA. The organizational overlap with socialist labor movements. He was all involved with them. And he actually cooperated. He had a bunch of cooperation with international socialist causes aligned with the Soviet Union itself. And so that while they're not actually Marxists altogether, this is where they're pulling their information to lead to it. It was interesting to see some of the things. I felt like they stretched some of the things. I could understand why they had made that shift, but there was several of them. But check that out. And I looked at, I said, well, I don't believe so. I asked AI. AI knows everything. We can trust everything.
Good Lord.
AI says. And so you don't think so?
Absolutely. I use it a lot, so no.
It would absolutely tell you what you want to hear, won't it?
It'll tell you what you want to hear. It'll tell you what it thinks you want to hear.
And then if you get angry at it, it'll change its mind.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. Anyway, so but I asked AI, I said, after I listened to Vody Bachman, I listened to this Chad O. Jackson guy some, and so I went to AI and I said, AI, I said, I gave it some parameters, you got to give, I said, you're a conservative. Give me an argument for why Martin Luther King would be considered a Marxist. And it gave me some, but it didn't have anything specific to support its answer. And so I, go a little deeper. Give me some specific quotes from his speeches or sermons that would support this idea that you're trying to have. And so even some of the quotes that they said, I don't think fully confirm Marxism, although it will more socialist than anything. Like socialism was an absolute, I believe that he was a socialist, but so were a lot of hippies. Let's just be honest. You know what I'm saying? My daddy was a socialist. He thought everybody ought to have the same amount of money. Redistribution. So like one of his quotes was, I think it came from where do we go from here? It was a speech he had done in Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1967. We must recognize that we can't solve our problems now until there is a radical redistribution of economic and political power. That's more socialism to me than, and
but who's he speaking to?
Christian Leadership Conference.
Yeah, that's going to be largely African American Leadership Conference, and there needed to be some sort of they did not have equal rights. So he's speaking to people that there needs to be some sort of redistribution.
I tell you, just sitting here listening to you, that the two things you pointed out, redistribution of wealth, which is something we spoke against, and it is Marxism does have that.
He didn't say redistribution of wealth. It was redistribution of power.
Well, that in that comment, but later,
Yeah.
like he did believe in a redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, and what was the other one now? I've just suddenly
The
forgot.
oppressor and the oppressed.
Which is part of Marxism.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you see where they're using these two elements and labeling him a Marxist. However, they're missing parts like total state control he opposed. You have to have that Marxism. He was not an atheist. That is central to Marxism.
Absolutely.
Right? So they leave this stuff out.
Right.
Do they talk about it at all?
Well,
that
so
he was an
the
atheist? They want to twist things, right?
the atheist part of it, they don't. The Vody Bachman did have some problems with his gospel.
But
And
that's not atheism.
that's not atheism, although some people would say if you don't believe in Jesus Christ as presented by the Bible, that you don't believe, that's a form of atheism. But I don't know. The far as the state control part of it, where the state controls everything, now he did lean into that. Some of these historians, they brought up the fact that he was very much, rather than us as individuals taking responsibility for actions and sins and making changes ourselves, he very much towards the end started to want to rely on more and more government to make the changes for us,
right,
rather than us doing it. But
and you have to hate capitalism, and he did not oppose capitalism. He just wanted it basically like regulated, which to some degree we have to. If not, then you end up with monopolies and things like that.
Yeah,
it makes it hard to. It's strange to look at how they label him this way, but it's selective. They only select certain things that they.
So I like what we talked about before the podcast, how you mentioned that you had asked somebody about it, and or AI or something too, and it said that would he vote for President Trump or Obama?
It wouldn't fit with either one of them.
And so I found there was a quote that that this AI gave me that actually fit that too, and it said his quote was, "Capitalism forgets that life is social, and the kingdom of brotherhood is found neither in the thesis of communism nor in the antithesis of capitalism, but in a higher synthesis." Yeah,
that's Martin Luther King's quote.
Martin Luther King's quote. Yeah, and so I don't know that really supports capitalism or communism.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, he also in that same paper that he wrote, and when he said that, he said communism provides no place for God, no place for Christ, no place for the church. That's not the language of a Marxist sympathizer at all. That's Karl Marx was an atheist, and he hated religion. He called religion the opium of the people. And Martin Luther King Jr.'s, on the other hand, grounded everything he believed in God. He said, God, our ultimate allegiance is not to government, but to God. Even though he wanted to change government, he wanted government to give equal rights and things like that. His ultimate allegiance was to God. I think that even though he wasn't a capitalist, he wasn't a communist, he obviously leaned socialist, but you got to think in the culture that he lived in, they didn't have equal rights.
Right.
Capitalism did hurt that demographic, but with equal rights, since civil rights has come into play, capitalism has helped that demographic, in my opinion, in the opinion of a lot of those that come out of that demographic. I think that he would lean more towards capitalism now, but I think he would still have concerns about it.
Sure.
But
yeah, we've never. I mean, we've seen elements. If you're as old as I am, you've seen elements. But I was never in a school where we had black and white bathrooms, or kids had to ride on the back of the bus or anything. Martin Luther King experienced this kind of stuff, so it's really hard for us to even have the understanding that he did or where he was coming from, because we haven't experienced this type of things.
You also think about what Karl Marx also taught. He endorsed revolutionary violence, and Karl Marx would love the rioting violence that is
mostly
so
peaceful.
Yeah, mostly peaceful.
That's the part.
He would love all that stuff that we see today, and
that's foundational to Marxism as well.
Absolutely. And Martin Luther King Jr. was unwaveringly.
What you're saying
committed.
Is the Democratic Party is closer to Marxism than Martin Luther King.
Absolutely.
Today it is.
Absolutely, yeah. But Martin Luther King was committed, unwaveringly committed to nonviolence, even when it cost him personally.
He was against the Vietnam War, and
And why was he against violence? Why was he so committed to nonviolence? In his mind, it demonstrated Christian discipline that he modeled after Christ.
There you have it.
All right, so
I tell you, there's one thing that was true about him, whether he was a Marxist or a socialist or not, and that he was a political activist.
Absolutely. He was an activist whose beliefs were based on his understanding of the Bible.
and I think that Christians need to be political activists.
Absolutely. What a great segue into our topic today.
Yeah. What was the question? You got the question.
I got a question. Yes. Being a midterm year, what should Christians do to prepare spiritually as individuals and practically in their communities?
Buy more ammo.
Step one.
Exercise your Second Amendment right to bear arms. Oh man.
Yeah, but I think it's a very good question that
It
we
is.
got. What should we do as Christians? Are we supposed to just separate our Christianity from the elections? Are we supposed to stay out of them?
A lot of Christians argue that yes. A lot of people I've seen that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that all the time. I get on one side. I just stay out of it. Or others that they kind of separate their Christianity. They're not the same. I don't have to carry my Christianity into the voting box and things like that. So what is the answer to that?
So I'm gonna give you some biblical based reasons. Why am I always
Why you
the
got to
one?
go to the Bible?
I don't. Yeah, but I'm gonna be on the wrong side again, but I'm gonna use the Bible to do it.
Okay.
All right. And I want y'all to tell me why I'm wrong, please. So, there really is no point in us overexerting ourselves during election time and getting all bent out of shape, because the Bible is very clear that God sets up kings and takes them down at his will. And so it's not for us.
I got a couple podcasts you can watch.
Well, first of all, I agree partially with your statement. We don't need to be getting bent out of shape over elections and things like that, because these things are never the ultimate. God is in control. If you think that who the president is or who the governor is going to bring the world to an end, then you're not trusting in God enough.
No, yeah. I mean, I can agree with that. Why?
Keep going. Yeah.
No, well, so it's hard, because my question then, if I was going to ask a question, is, so does that mean that man doesn't have free will to choose who they want to be their leaders?
Oh, because God raises up.
Because God does it.
Do we not have a responsibility of stewardship?
I'm just saying, yeah. I mean,
What is Romans 13 all about anyhow?
submitting to the government no matter who the leader is, because when they wrote it, it was Nero on the throne and he was a terrible one, and so it doesn't make no difference. You just have to submit.
In the verse.
Ain't that what it means?
I got a couple of thoughts there. In the verses that you read, does it say that he raises up all kings, all leaders?
Well, we've heard it.
It's pretty much it.
Said yes.
Yeah, that was a
He puts everybody in
Well, you've heard the arguments. You've listened.
So that one verse that got thrown around a lot, God sets up kings and he takes them down, and so was very much there will not be a leader in place unless God wants it to be, regardless of what man does.
It is very deterministic.
That is an absolute lie. Is what
That's
that
very
is.
deterministic theology there, and wrong.
It's an absolute lie. God didn't want a king to start with. Then God gave parameters of what he wanted a king to be, and the people chose a different one anyhow.
Right.
Absolutely.
Was that was against God's will, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Evidently not.
Right, that's right.
See the contradiction?
Ugh.
Yeah, God raises up some leaders, but usually God does things. God does miracles too, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people, does he do those miracles through people? Yeah, sometimes he does. He uses us as the channels to save people. We don't save people, but he uses us the channel to save people. He uses us as a channel to raise people up sometimes. And sometimes it's our own sin, our own laxity, our own complacency that causes him to raise up some evil leader to take us to a rock bottom sometimes.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That I think that you come. Man either has a free will or they don't. I don't think there are times where God says, you know what, I'm going to postpone your ability to make a choice. You no longer get to choose. I'm going to take total control over this moment, but I'll give it back to you in a minute. I think that this idea when God sets kings up, sets kings down. He does that through the will of man, right? And just like he performs miracles through men. Who did the miracle, the man or the God? It was God. And he just happens, his sovereignty, his intellect, he is so much more smarter than we are that he can understand what's going to happen through the will of man. He's going, permissive will, I guess is the way to say it. He's going to allow things to happen that will restructure society. But he's basically going to say, this is what I want. Now make a decision. How are you going to get to that point? Oh, that's a wrong decision. Now you have a bad king, then you suffer consequences for it. But I like what you said earlier. You asked a question, do we have a moral responsibility to engage? I think we do, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We talked a whole lot about the law and what the purpose of the law is, and it's really so the lost can see, which is all of us at one time, but we can see our sin, right? Mm-hmm. And at least in the United States, our Constitution and our laws are based upon God's moral law. And if you're going to love your neighbors, as Christ said we're supposed to love them, are all your neighbors saved? I mean, do you have any lost neighbors?
Yeah.
Isn't it necessary that these people need to see right and wrong? And that, for me, that's really what it boils down to. I see government, especially when you read in the Old Testament, the purpose of what government is for and who we're commanded to elect. And that's people who love truth and they hate evil. Those are the ones we're supposed to elect. And the purpose of that is to punish people who do evil things and reward people who do good things. We're really not talking about the saved. We're talking about the lost. So if you really love them, you want them to be guided in the right direction, which is the purpose of the law. The purpose of the government is for the unsaved, right? Or am I wrong?
Yes.
So is that not stewardship?
Am I right or am I wrong? Yes. No. Yeah, I think that. I think that sounds like it makes a whole lot of sense to me.
In Jeremiah 29, it said this is when the children of Israel are going to be sent into captivity, and God tells them to Jeremiah 29:7, and seek the peace of the city wherewith I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray to the Lord for it, for in the peace thereof shall ye have peace. So in whatever possible way they were to seek peace for that city. One of the ways that we can seek the peace of where God has placed us is by voting. I did something interesting when I did some research for this, because I wanted to come at it from I wanted to know what the historical position was. So I used AI to kind of expedite my research, and I gave it some very specific parameters, and I think this was very cool, but it gave me way too much to sort through. But here, listen to this. This is my prompt. I said, since America was founded on Christian principles, I really want to know what the founders and Christian pastors from the late 1700s and early 1800s would say Christians should do spiritually as individuals and practically in their communities to prepare for elections. Include specific quotes from sermons, speeches, and writings. So I wanted, at the founding of this country, which is when I think most of them guys had it right, I want to know what they thought, how they would answer this question. And one of the things that it is over and over again is what y'all were talking about. They saw election participation as a moral duty.
Right.
You want their first call in all those messages, all those sermons that I looked at, all those quotes was they wanted to, they stressed personal virtue and moral as a moral necessity. Get your own life right. You can't vote righteously if you're not living righteously, if you're not trying to live right. And then secondly, try to let that righteousness spread to other people. But secondly, you need to vote.
Right.
You need to vote. That was a civic duty, was a moral duty.
And then that also, because we have primaries that are coming up, if you don't get involved in the primaries and do some research and find out what candidates you have that line up best with our principles, you're leaving the decision of who's going to be voted on to others, including the lost. So you can't avoid those things.
Primaries are important.
Yes.
Yes.
You can't just wait around and wait for the election and say, okay, I voted, I've done my duty. You need to get involved in the primaries as well.
What so many people all they care about is I'm gonna vote when it's time to vote for the president. I'm gonna vote for the president.
Yep.
When you do that, whether it's subliminal or not, you are treating that candidate as like a messiah. I'm gonna vote for this person because he's gonna save the country. You don't save the country by voting for a president. It starts with you individually, your own personal righteousness, and then it starts in the local levels all the way up.
Say not only that, but you have a way bigger footprint and impact in a local election than you do on a national scale.
Absolutely.
Yes. It's going to affect you, your neighbors, your community.
And once we can change the local community, then your county, and then your state, now we're getting where we can start affecting the national level. It's almost like mission work. Starts at home.
Yes.
In your surroundings, and then it goes out further and further. You can't just jump out there across the big pond when you ain't done nothing here. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at you did historically, and I did like currently. I believe the government tries to limit what Christians are able to do, and I think they do it on purpose because our government has taken a totally different direction than what it was intended back whenever you're talking about how it was set up. And so if you just look under like constitutional and legal rights that we're given and how the government is even now using those against us, kind of, if you will. So right now, peaceful assembly and expression are protected rights. We can have rallies, we can have marches, we can do online advocacy, so long as they remain nonviolent, mostly peaceful, and lawful. And so they have laws that back it up. Protests must not obstruct polling places, intimidate voters, or interfere with election operations. You can't block entrances, and there's all these rules they have, which I'm fine with those. On election days, campaigns can't be broadly suppressed. You got to be able to do it, but there's also they'll give you a restricted area. You can't be right up there at the polls to where you're aggravating people. There are even some rules, laws that say false statements of fact intended to mislead voters about the mechanics of voting or candidate position may be regarded under the State Fair Campaign Law Act. So this is where they got everybody about the whole Dominion machines. Mm-hmm. And so there is some things that are looking at it. So I think that's where we're starting to get into this gray area. But now let's talk about the difference between if I don't even know where to start. This is a big topic for me. I get emotional about it sometimes. In our society, across the world even, but particularly here in America, there are a certain group of people that have been commissioned with the job of maintaining the stability foundation of truth. That's the Christian and the church. That's our job, right? And so you have individual members of the body, and then you have a body as a whole when we have our small local churches. And this is where the government starts to manipulate us a little bit. So churches, we receive a thing from the government called a 501c3 religious organization. It's a tax-exempt thing so that we can freely operate without the government coming in and checking our books and trying to take away our funds. But then they use that and they say, well, an individual Christian, like a person, individual, can go out by themselves and they can advocate, they can protest, they can campaign, and they can support causes or a candidate in their own personal capacity. We can pick a candidate, we can advocate for that particular candidate. You see what I'm saying? Campaign for them, and that's all good because we're individuals. However, churches are not allowed to do that. Otherwise, you'll lose your 501c3. So inside of a church, all you're allowed to do from a pulpit is to preach moralities, or you can endorse, you can't endorse a partisan. You can't pick a side. You can just say, these are the things we need to look for, but don't say, and that guy has it. Does that make sense? And I think, well, why? Because if you go back to history, the one thing I did see is during an election year, from the pulpit, they began to preach about the election and the people running for office. But we can't do that now.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know that they were ever endorsing candidates. They were talking about those people and talking about their morality and things like that. But I don't know they ever would endorse people.
But my point is that I don't think they said I don't think they had Trump banners in the church. I'm not saying that. But whenever they had a guy who was, I'm just going to use a stupid example, like pro-abortion, they would say, that candidate thinks it's okay to kill babies.
You can't do that in church.
You're not supposed to call out any specific.
Oh well, don't go back. I can point you to a couple of sermons right now.
That's what I'm talking about.
History that I have called out. I called out Hillary Clinton, called out Donald Trump, called out Joe Biden, called out Obama. I don't have no problem calling them out. If they're wrong, I mean, if they're wrong and they're sinful in the morality, I'm going to call that out. That doesn't mean I'm endorsing any other candidate. Just, hey, you're wrong, you're wrong.
I'll read it. It's USCCB1.
Don't care.
It says, churches and 501c3 religious organizations must not engage in partisan political activity using church assets or membership under IRS rules. This includes endorsements, partisan materials, and selective candidate forums.
Do what they want. Take
no law, right? Isn't what it said?
Hey, take our tax exempt status. Okay, we'll figure out a way to pay taxes. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna truth is truth.
Now you're getting.
I like that right there.
Now you're getting into where it drove me nuts. People used to tell me all the time, we might lose our 501c3.
Oh well.
What are you worshiping now? You worshiping the 501c3 or you worshiping Jesus?
Yep.
Anyway, so unlike society today, whose definition for peaceful protest has been skewed, to say the least, right? It's a little, I don't know if it's actually what I think it is. I wanted to know what a real peaceful protest was. And so if you're planning to execute one of these, which you think you should if you're a Christian. What, is that wrong?
Like the way you said it, that's all.
Don't
promote one.
Plan and execute, man. You need to write it down. Like, you got to have an objective. If you're planning anything, you got to have an objective, right? What specific outcome are you trying to achieve? What is your goal from your peaceful protest? Are you trying to raise awareness of a policy, or gather signatures on a ballot, or point out the flaw in a candidate? You know, what is your clear objective? What do you want? You got to have an outcome. And then you got to pay attention to the laws, because, you know, regardless, we're supposed to submit to the government. And there is something to that. There is a submission part of it. And what I mean by that is you need to choose a lawful location, right? I think that's common sense. I think that is respecting the public right of ways in the middle of the street where people are driving. I don't think these are smart locations like you got in Minnesota right now, right? I think that if you're going to follow all the rules of the law that the government has for us now, we also have to give notification to the authorities that we're going to have a protest. I think you have to tell them.
Yeah.
And so some cities require permits for larger gatherings that have a certain number. And you want to make sure that you're doing it in conjunction with your local laws.
You can protest without rebellion, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then I think you should have some material, man. You need some signs. Everybody else got a sign. Why don't we get some signs? Anyway, plan and execute. In contrast to, we're Christians and we don't protest. Are there any biblical examples of people protesting against authority in the Bible?
John the Baptist.
Oh, wait a minute. Whoa. John the Baptist did?
He lost his head because of it.
Oh. Who did he protest against?
The king.
The most powerful guy in the world.
Person.
Oh, man. How about that?
Shouldn't do stuff like that.
I don't know if you can say Jesus did, because he was the king, but still yet.
What
He
about
was at least accused of it.
Elijah? Same thing.
Uh-huh.
Ahab and Jezebel.
Nathan
protested against the king. Yeah, these are protesting against the top dogs.
Yeah.
So,
right in the face even.
There is a precedence set biblically.
Proverbs 31:8-9 says, "Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." I think that it's almost like a mandate that when you see something that is causing the destruction of moralities or even Christianity or falling away from truth, you have to say something.
I would argue Martin Luther King did that in his day because of what he was faced with.
What about Ephesians 5:11? It says, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them."
Reprove.
What's that word mean?
Something like correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
And how do you correct them? With what? 2 Timothy 3:16. All scripture is given by inspiration of God, profitable for doctrine, for reproof,
Yep.
for correction, for instruction in righteousness.
I would even go a little further and say that there is no possible way whatsoever to reprove anything without first exposing what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would make no sense,
It
right?
would make no sense. I think if you read in Acts 16, you see where Paul publicly asserts his Roman citizenship after unlawful treatment. And it's a precedent that is invoking legal rights to confront injustice. So my point on that one is when something goes contrary to our Constitution, we can invoke our constitutional rights to point out the injustices that are happening. Can we not? Are we not allowed to do that?
Absolutely.
So if you're looking at your candidates, then how do you decide which candidates you need to put on the primary?
Do some homework.
How you do that?
There's plenty of ways now to do your homework. I mean, lots of them go in to these little voter guide things you can find online, and they'll answer certain questions. Better than that, go to their social media page.
There you go.
You can see what they like. You can see what they follow. You can see what they put down, and you can see what they believe, and the morality that shapes them, or immorality that shapes them.
Yep. And if they've been in politics, you can always look at their records,
Mm-hmm.
see if it matches up. Their voting records match up with what they say they believe.
That brings up another question. I'm sorry. We'll go down this rabbit hole too.
Chase it.
If you're able to look at their record and what they've done, how then would you make an application to always submit to your government because it's ordained by God, when in Romans 13 it says that the purpose for them is to reward good and restrain evil?
Right.
So when the government fails this purpose, then what?
To obey God rather than man,
Exactly.
and call them out and reprove them.
And replace them if you can. We have that freedom to do so.
How do you replace them?
By voting?
By voting, and there's also checks and balances that legal actions can be taken. That's why we have 3 equal but separate branches of governments, for the checks and balances.
What happens when our voting system becomes tainted?
Again, that's why we have checks and balances.
I'll go back to the first thing you said.
They
Buy
need to
more
be-
ammo.
Buy more ammo.
Yeah. And they need to be brought to justice.
In practicality, though, for the majority of individuals, I mean, what do you think you should do as an individual? Since we can't do it in the church, and it's time for what is we've got preliminaries coming up. When is it? March, you said? Primaries, not preliminaries, primaries. So between now and March, whenever you've done your research and you figured out which candidate is more morally grounded in biblical truth, how then do you interact with your community to try to persuade them, if you will, that is the best candidate to put on the ballot?
All right, let me just say something. You said you can't do it in the church. Maybe you can't do it from the pulpit as effectively as you would like, but that doesn't stop Christians from talking to other Christians and brothers and sisters talking in the church and sharing the information
Right.
that they have. So you absolutely can do it in the church. That's what we talk about, the gospel in the church. We ought to talk about our candidates in the church and let that funnel out into the community. So I just wanted to say that
part. Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
And we're saying, y'all are saying, I'm gonna pick on the way you're saying that. It's not that you can't do that in the church, and it's not that you can't do it in the pulpit. It's just that you may lose your 501(c) if you do.
I said it that way on purpose just to get under your feather.
Yeah.
I'm good at this. I'm getting better at it. Is that right?
Yeah,
From poking the bear a little bit.
Here's some things I came up with, and I got 4 steps here, and there's more to it, but this is how I sermonized it based on the sermons that I was able to sort through from the late 1700s and early 1800s. First thing I think you should do is to see and stress prayer for all leaders as a moral commandment. 1 Timothy chapter 2 says, I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayer, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. So here's a couple. When I say see, I mean see it for yourself. Make it a priority for yourself. And then stress means outwardly. Stress that for others. You need to be praying for leaders, and you need to stress others need to be praying for leaders. And all leaders, that means even those you disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
There was a pastor one time that I knew, and he said he would not pray for Barack Obama. He said, man, Scripture says pray for all leaders. And when you pray for all leaders, even those you don't like and disagree with, that will cultivate humility in you, which is something that we need to take into a voting season. A humility to think that we don't have it all right. So that's my first step, is to see and stress prayer for all leaders as a moral commandment. That's a commandment there in 1 Timothy.
I had put to support that too. It's Colossians 4:6, which we've been studying. It says, let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt. Humility.
Mm-hmm. The second one kind of stems off from that, and that is to see and stress personal virtue as a moral necessity. You want to know how to prepare for election time? Get your own life right. Make sure you're living right. Make sure you're studying the Bible. Make sure you're praying and understanding that Christian discipleship can affect how you see politics in the world. That means pray before you post. I see so many things on Facebook, people posting left and right. They don't care who it hurts. They don't care what the connotations are. They just put it out there. Right? Just pray before you post. My third thing is to see and to stress election participation as a moral duty. If you're a Christian, you're called to be a moral person, and part of that morality is going out there and voting. That is our duty. That is a responsibility to be informed voters. And that's what y'all were talking about a while ago. You got to do some research. You got to get on those websites, get in their voting record, get on the social media pages and find out what you're doing. And then the last thing, and y'all can go from here, is to see and to stress government as a moral concern. Government should not be morally neutral. Do not see government as something that's morally neutral. It needs to promote morality. What's the Romans passage talking about? The government's there as a to protect good, basically. It's a threat to evil to protect the good. If a government is not moral, then it's not protecting good. And when you see government as a moral concern, you're going to vote for moral people and people whose platforms have moral repercussions.
Don't forget that this institution of government was ordained by God in the beginning anyway. God set it up. He gave us parameters for how it should be. It is absolutely a moral institution. You have to be involved with it because it's God, just like like marriage. God ordained marriage. It's his idea. It ain't ours. We got to follow his rules for it. He made it. Jesus told us that we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. He told us we're supposed to be the light of the world. How do you do that if you're not involved with what is ruling the world right now? Think about that. You know what I mean? If the government is doing all these things, and it is impacting everything, right? I don't think anyone could deny that what the government decides and what the government does impacts everybody's life in this country. Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
We have to be involved. Can't ignore that.
I like it. What is it for?
Oh, yeah. So we got the Beyond the Blind coming up, and we got us a cool sponsor, Rock Electric. Shout out to the Rock Electric people. They have provided us with a couple of giveaways for the event at the Blind. So we got this Yeti cooler here with the cool stuff in it.
Yeah, there's some very cool stuff.
We got a pooper shovel over there too, even. Those SOG survivor shovels. Those things are awesome. We got axes and all kinds of stuff in it. It's got weapons.
It's got Bibles. It's got jerky.
Bibles and jerkies and calls. We're gonna
everything you need to survive when the world goes to crap because y'all didn't get out and vote.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. So be sure you show up for Beyond the Blind thing so you can get entered to win for that. That's going to happen at the event.
Absolutely.
Anyway, what y'all think about who the sheriff's going to be this time?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I don't know. You must have an opinion.
And you know I got an opinion. I don't know if I'm ready to share it just yet or not, but I was just wondering where you guys were standing because I like to just follow. In fact,
That's not been your reputation.
I've been given the impression lately that whatever y'all think, I believe the opposite.
Yeah.
It's cool though.
I don't know. I think that I think people have a hard time not voting for old Steve because he's been there so long. You know what I mean? It's hard to change. He's done a fine job, yeah. But I think on the same time is if there was a candidate that was worthy of competition with Steve, you got one now. Yeah. It'd be tough.
I think that is a good synopsis of the situation.
Yeah. I know that the last time it came up, the candidate was not worthy.
And I think this is a good voting problem to have. You got one that's done a good job. You got one that seems like it will do a good job, and that's the kind of that's what we want. I would love it when the candidate there's no lesser of two evils, or when there's one that's clearly. I like when there's multiple.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tell you how to make that problem occur over and over again. If you really want to be involved with these elections, then run for office.
Y'all don't want me. Y'all don't want me to run.
Let me tell you how the world has convinced Christians not to run for office.
The government is evil.
Well, it's because that whenever you do run for office, you best believe that whatever you've done wrong in your past is going to be called out. And Christians have this mentality that even though our sins are supposed to be confessed and forgiven, we don't want the rest of the world to know that we're flawed. And so it becomes an embarrassment. And so therefore, rather to endure or bear the embarrassment, we just avoid it by not taking part of it. I'm serious.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Look, and I'm just as guilty of it as everybody else. Somebody asked me one time, why didn't I run for county commissioner? That's it. I want everybody to know what I done wrong.
Well, that's part of my testimony, so I kind of want to tell it.
Anyway. I don't think that you need to be quiet. If you got an opinion, I guess I say you need to voice it. I mean, you need to, particularly if you're basing it on biblical principles. I think we need to be focusing a whole lot on what is happening right here in your local area, particularly in the primaries. That's where it begins. And don't be afraid to talk to people about it. And this whole idea of talking to them with humility or, with grace and salt in what you're saying, it don't always have to be a whole bunch of opinionated stuff. Ask somebody some questions and let them tell you what they think, particularly if they're trying to vote for a candidate or their primary pick is different than yours. Find out why. And just engage people. We have lost our ability to have a conversation for fear that we might offend somebody, which is the reason why I think when we started off with this whole Martin Luther King conversation to start with, I think nobody ever really talks about it because they're afraid they might offend somebody.
Yeah.
So you have all these sensitive topics, racism and in politics, and are you a liberal, are you a conservative? And I think, man, technically in the end, there's really only two teams, and it's the saved and the lost.
That's it.
You see what I mean? And so these are the two teams we need to be worried about. And if we're all saved, then we need to be all on the same team trying to win more people than the lost.
Yep.
And I think a good way of doing that is line your government back up with biblical principles so that they can see moralities
Right.
and how our local government is run and our national government is run.
Cool.
Anyway, y'all got anything else?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah. You need to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notifications. But absolutely comment Beyond the Blind so you're entered in the tickets to win.
Yeah.
You know,
It's coming up February the 19th.
Yep. February. It's quick. It's coming fast. It's close.
Yep.
Get your entry in there.
Get in there, man. Get in there. Check it out.
Get tickets. Come see us.
Come on and see us. Appreciate you guys listening, and look forward to you tuning in on the next episode.